Chapter 31. A Nauseating Night. The rest of the day was more of the same. Felix was stared at by everyone and was incredibly comfortable with this and frankly used to it. I was more used to being invisible and mostly hid behind Felix. Teachers were thrilled to have one of the Alphas grace their classrooms. At lunchtime, everyone surrounded us, listening intently to Felix talk about anything and everything. They hung off his every word and tried to be extra friendly with me. The 4 football players who had come to my rescue that day came over to say hello. Felix seemed to know about them helping me. Of course, Calix must have told him. They all bounced knuckles with Felix and talked about plays and strategies when it came to football. Felix, Alex, and Calix had been the star players back when they were students here, which was only about 3 years ago. Eventually, we were surrounded by the entire football team, and the cheerleaders and Felix recounted how he and his brothers had been instrumental in winning the championship game. Everyone gasped and cheered during his tale. I ate quietly and kept my eyes downcast on my food. Felix nudged me. "What's wrong, baby?" he murmured in my ear. "Nothing," I mumbled, smiling half-heartedly at him. Felix frowned. He had not done anything wrong per se, but it was difficult feeling like the only thing that suddenly made me worthy was being mated to the triplets. Almost no one, including the triplets, had treated me like a person before I had been mated to the 3 beloved Alphas. Felix and I were invited to some house party by the head cheerleader, Roxy. I had no intention of going. "You're not going to this party without proper supervision, okay?" said Felix sternly. "I'm not going at all," I protested. Felix stopped in his tracks on the way to the parking lot. "Why not?" He looked concerned. "Why don't you want to go?" asked Felix, his eyes wide. "If you want to go, one of us will take you. Whoever's shift it is will take you, okay?" I shook my head furiously. "I hate parties," I exclaimed. Felix looked at me like I was insane. "Why?" demanded Felix incredulously. "Because I hate dancing and crowds, so naturally I don't like something that combines those two," I said simply. Felix smirked. "Chastity, you're in high school. You should try to enjoy it. Make some happy memories," said Felix encouragingly. "Okay, sure, good talk," I said dismissively. Felix frowned. We had reached the car. Alex was here to pick us up with Calix in the passenger seat. Felix opened the door for me, and then he got in. "How'd it go?" asked Alex as though he'd been worried. "Perfectly," purred Felix. Alex rolled his eyes but smiled, clearly relieved. "No more bullies?" said Calix, looking at me, his eyes questioning me. "No more bullies," I replied, smiling. "None whatsoever," added Felix. "In fact, our little Princess Chastity here is loving school and her new friends so much she wants to hang out with them tonight at a party they're throwing." "Ugh, no I do not," I said immediately. "A party sounds like fun," Calix said brightly. "Why don't we all go?" "A high school party?" asked Alex, twisting his mouth in disdain. "Nah, I know the girl who's throwing it. Her sister is in college. It's a joint thing with high school seniors and college kids," explained Felix. "That sounds cool," Alex said, smiling a little. "I don't want to go," I wailed. "Why not, Luna?" asked Alex. "I just don't," I grumbled. "Please, Goddess, let's go have some fun," whined Calix. "Come on, baby," Felix insisted. Why were they so hell-bent on me going to this stupid party? "Chastity, my Luna, you don't know many of the pack members very well, old and young alike," said Alex gently. "I know you're shy, baby, and we're sorry if we're part of the reason you've always been in your little shell," added Felix. "But this is a good opportunity to at least get to know some of the pack members in your age group," continued Calix. "A Luna is what holds a pack together. She's a mother to the entire pack, and the alpha is the father figure," said Alex. "Most Lunas try to learn the names and basic info about each member to keep a check on them, see who needs what. You can't help your children if you don't know what their issues are," said Felix. "A good mother knows what's up with all of her babies. A she-wolf has to keep track of her cubs, Calyx said. Triple ugh. I hate when they were right. I squirmed a little bit. Being with the triplets meant I had to be their Luna. I technically already was in a biological sense. I'd been fated to them and they'd made it and marked me. Ronnie was just holding the post for me until I finished high school. I sighed. Let's go to the stupid party, I grumbled. The triplets all grinned and cheered. The triplets were ready early for the party and waiting on their mate Chastity. They hoped this party would serve two purposes. One, to help their little Luna get to know her pack members, and two, to help get her mind off of whoever was out there trying to get her. They had already arranged for several pack warriors to come to the party dressed in plain clothes as partygoers, just in case they should need backup of any kind. The investigation looking into the attempted kidnapping had notified them of something concerning. The kidnapper, whose fingerprints had all been burnt off and who did not seem to have been registered as a pack member, bore an interesting identifier. A full moon with a serpent curled around it. Dee Dee's tattoo. The one she had said Chalice also had. The triplets had not shared any of this with Chastity yet. It was not keeping secrets. It was all part of an ongoing investigation. They wanted to present Chastity with something comprehensive and satisfying. They wanted the whole story. What was the connection between the tattooed werewolves, a cult, a gang, a mindless trend? Chastity's POV. I was so nervous about this party. I really didn't socialize much. I was relieved that Mina and Tina would be there. I had just messaged them to make sure. I wore a sparkly black, figure-hugging mini dress and high heels. I left my hair down. I put on red lipstick I felt that suited me. I was thinking about changing as I turned to and fro, anxiously scrutinizing myself in the mirror, when Alex walked in. He raised his eyebrows, flashing them upwards quickly. His lips parted in surprise. He gave me an okay sign with one hand. He drew me to him and pressed his nose to my neck. You look gorgeous, Luna, he murmured against my skin. I shivered a little as the cold nip of his nose slid along my jawline. I raised my chin so he had better access to the area, and he took that as an opportunity to plant kisses down my neck to my shoulder. He swayed with me back and forth on the spot as though we were dancing. He twirled me and dipped me. As he dipped me, he leant down and pressed his lips to mine. The triplets and I drove to the head cheerleader's house. She lived in a sprawling mansion almost as large as the pack house. Out front, there were dozens and dozens of cars parked in the huge driveway and snow-covered lawn. There were teenagers and young adults in the porch, smoking, drinking, laughing, and nodding their heads to the upbeat bass-heavy music coming from inside. As I walked up to the porch, I noticed several guys trailed their eyes over me and licked their lips. They quickly looked away and stiffened when they spotted the triplets with me. Felix walked in front of me, and Alex and Calyx were at either side of me protectively. The whole party seemed to stop or perhaps slow down as we entered. Every gaze was on us. Girls ogled the triplets, grinning, blushing, swooning, and squealing. Guys nodded, bowing their heads slightly in respect and submission towards the alphas. The crowd parted a little. Moxie was in a hot pink bondage dress, and her sister from college, Roxy, was in a similar dress in a dusky pink shade. Both girls had light ash blonde hair and big brown eyes. They seemed smug beyond belief that the triplets were at their house and their party. "Welcome, Alphas," squealed Moxie. "It's an honor," added Roxy. Felix grinned. Alex nodded but kept his face neutral, and Calyx smiled sweetly, even winking at each sister in turn, which annoyed me, honestly. Calyx caught my expression and grasped my waist. I tried to pull away from him, but he latched onto me, pressing his mouth against mine in a shockingly passionate kiss, right in the middle of the living room where the thick of things were. All the partygoers, mainly the girls, oohed and squealed. The guys whoaed. Everyone cheered when he broke away from me, grinning and winking again. I blushed deeply and hid my face in Calyx's shirt. Mina and Tina found me. I threw my arms around them like they were lifesavers in the middle of the ocean. They hugged back. Chastity's first party, squealed Tina. Let's get drunk, shrieked Mina. We can't. It's a school night and we really shouldn't drink because… An hour and 4 shots later, I was pretty tipsy. I was on Felix's lap on the living room couch while he chilled with the same 4 football players that idolized him and the other alphas. The entire team and some of their mates joined us one by one, taking up all the couch space. About 36 people were dancing, mostly just girls grinding on their mates on the dance floor. Calix was winning at beer pong, getting the ball in the right cup of beer every time, surrounded by a crowd of admirers. Alex was in the kitchen fetching me some water. He came back. A few girls were edging closer and closer to him, giggling. Ugh, I was so sick of this. I drank the water quickly, feeling a little better. I stumbled away from them when Calix's back was turned. Felix was deep in conversation, and Alex was explaining pack laws to the stalker girls. I climbed the stairs. I was out of breath. I had been told by Roxy that there was a bathroom on the landing. I had not been pleased to recognize Roxy as one of Felix's ex-girlfriends as soon as I saw her. That was how he had known her sister, Moxie, the current head cheerleader. Roxy, his ex, had been head cheerleader back when he was the star quarterback. How cute, I grumbled inwardly. The light in the bathroom flickered on before I could turn it on myself. There were people around here and there, but not as many as in the living room, and half of them were passed out on the stairs, or maybe just asleep. I realized who had turned the light on before me. Sandra, Avery, and Tanya, the most recent ex-girlfriends of the triplets. I gulped at their pissed-off expressions, their arms akimbo. Congratulations on your engagement, Charity, spat Tanya. You know, it's funny, girls. I remember a certain pathetic little girl who lied to our faces, saying she had no idea who the triplets' mate was. Don't you, girls? Asked Avery. Oh yeah, I remember that. She was a maid one minute and their mate the next. You know, without the mate bond forcing them to be into you, you'd never be their type. Ever, snapped Sandra, watching me up and down. I hugged myself, feeling self-conscious and nauseated from the shots. Do you hear me? Asked Sandra angrily. She's ignoring us, said Tanya indignantly. We're talking to you, shrieked Avery. My stomach burned. The burning shot up my throat. I couldn't help it. I spewed vomit all over the 3 girls who already hated me. I wiped my mouth, looking at my own clean dress. Thank goodness. I glanced at the soiled girls, 6 coal-colored eyes filled with anger towards me. I gulped. Chapter 32. Misgivings and the Moon. The 3 she-wolves blocked my path to the bathroom on the stairway's landing. In the middle was Tonya, Felix's most recent ex, clad in a red dress so tight it looked painted on. She had olive skin, deep brown eyes, and long, bone-straight black hair. Flanking her were Calix's ex, Avery, in a blue sequin mini dress with her shoulder-length light blonde hair, blue eyes, and pale skin, and Alex's ex, Sandra, with her long, vibrant red hair, green eyes, and light sprinkling of freckles across rosy skin. Sandra wore a micro-mini dark green velvet dress. Currently, all 6 eyes had turned black and were filled with envy and hatred. All 3 outfits were splattered with my vomit. I'm so sorry, girls, I said feebly. For stealing our boyfriends or for ruining our clothes, bellowed Sandra. I didn't steal them. They're my mates, and they chose to break up with you, I retorted. I'm sorry for the clothes, I specified, my temper rising. You little bitch, cried Sandra, trying to grab me by my wrist. I was furious now, too. My wolf was snarling, jealous, threatened, and outraged. I snatched my hand away from Sandra and literally growled at her, barring my canines. Something the old Chastity, or perhaps Charity, would have never done. Sandra recoiled a little. Tonya and Avery glared. So you think you're hot stuff now, huh? You think you're actually worth something now? Spat Avery. Not a chance, added Sandra venomously. I rolled my eyes. You should have heard the horrible things they used to say about you, said Tonya. That actually made me a little worried. My eyes widened a bit. Didn't they tell you all the awful stuff they said about you to everyone, including us? Asked Sandra in mock innocence. Especially us, corrected Avery. That stung a little. Had the triplets insulted me behind my back? They used to do so to my face, but this felt worse somehow. Like they must have truly disliked me. Tonya smirked. Felix would go on and on about how fat and pathetic you were, how your cooking sucks, and you always gave attitude as a maid when you should just be grateful that their parents let your poor ass stay in the pack house, snarled Tanya. Alex thought you were ungrateful too, and that you didn't deserve to live in the pack house because you had no respect for any of them and were entitled, growled Sandra. Calix said you broke his nose when you were little, but still constantly played the victim as if you were so innocent when you were just as vicious, if not more, hissed Avery. I took a deep breath, fighting back tears. The girls seemed satisfied. Alex, baby, squealed Sandra suddenly, tossing her long, flaming red hair. Look at what this brat did to me, she shrieked, gesturing towards her dress. My heart plummeted. For one horrifying second, I thought Alex was rushing up the stairs to comfort Sandra. He would take her in his arms and say she was beautiful right in front of me, and then my heart would break. It would shatter. Alex bounded up the stairs, and my wolf and I waited terrified. He came up to us and snatched me up, enveloping me in his arms. Little Luna, he murmured against my skin, his face buried in my neck. Are you okay? What happened? Where'd you run off to? I had to use the bathroom, I said softly. Did you? He asked. I shook my head. Alex spotted the door behind the 3 she-wolves on the landing leading to the white-tiled bathroom. Excuse us, ladies, he said politely but indifferently. Alex! Shrieked Sandra. She vomited on us, cried Sandra, disgusted. She's sick, said Alex matter-of-factly, and if you hadn't blocked her way to the bathroom, you wouldn't have gotten vomited on. You hated her. You called her a burden and, screeched Sandra. Enough, said Alex loudly in his alpha voice. The 3 girls stiffened. Move, now. They were compelled to obey and fled downstairs. Alex took me into the bathroom and locked the door. I made him face the wall while I used the bathroom. I washed my hands, and then Alex made me wash my face and sip some water. He patted my head with a cool, damp towel. My skin was flushed and my head ached. He carried me down the stairs. He got some ibuprofen for me. I took it. How's she feeling? Came a soft, high-pitched voice. I was sitting on the kitchen counter, and Alex was holding me firmly by the waist so I would not fall over. The room still swam before my very eyes, but it no longer spun round and round haphazardly. I looked in the direction that the voice had come from. Roxy, Felix's ex-girlfriend prior to Tanya. I sighed. She's doing okay, said Alex, smiling. Could I talk to her for a minute? Asked Roxy sheepishly. I tried to hide in Alex's jacket. I'll be right in the pantry looking for a snack for you. You need to eat something, said Alex. Help yourself. You know where everything is, encouraged Roxy. Roxy sat on the counter next to me. I looked away from her, focused on sitting up straight. Mina and Tina had been driven home after they both drunkenly fell off the porch and into the snow, and they had needed to get out of their cold, wet things. I know Tanya, Sonia, and Avalon, she began, somewhat unsure of herself. None of those names are right, I said frankly. She grinned. Well, you know who I mean. Those girls. They were giving you a tough time. That was how it always was when you were dating one of the triplets. Girls would be so jealous. They'd be catty, calling me names, messing with my clothes while I was in the gym shower, and they even sabotaged my art piece for the fair. They slashed the painting up, said Roxy. I looked at her, my mouth agape. But you're popular. You're outgoing. You've always had friends, money, I said, waving my hands all over this colossal house. You're pretty, I mumbled, feeling self-conscious. None of those things made any difference. Everyone hoped to be Luna, and they acted crazily over it. Alex's girlfriend at the time, my friend Claire, dealt with the same thing. So did Rosie. She was Calix's girlfriend, Roxy explained. But people who behave that way aren't worth your time. Any self-respecting girl would let go when a guy meets his mate. Why did you and Felix break up? I asked. Moxie smiled. I met my mate Deacon, she said, her eyes lighting up. And Felix was so happy for me. He really was. He hoped to find his mate soon, too. He was never quiet about how much he wanted to meet her. I had never gotten to the point of werewolf relationships where you know you'll have to break up because the person isn't your mate, but to each his own. I felt a little insecure that Moxie broke up with Felix and not the other way around. Also, the relationship wasn't perfect. We did fight. We'd argue a lot. He called me Charity by accident like twice, she said, laughing about it now and shaking her head. So I'm not surprised. I blushed and looked away. You were only 17 at the time and Felix and I were 20. We had dated back in high school for a bit when I was head cheerleader and he was the star quarterback. People seemed to like us being together, but we weren't compatible. He broke up with me and we both dated other people until age 20 when we got back together pretty unexpectedly. I was livid that he was like obsessed with this little maid girl that lived in his house, no offense. Ugh, that sounds so snobby and awful saying it out loud like that, said Roxy, covering her face. He was always either whining about something wrong you did, or how you looked at him as if he were a monster, or how you didn't respect him. Then he would call me by your name sometimes. Then I found it, she exclaimed with such vigor I jumped a little. Found what? I asked, holding my breath for some reason. The painting, said Roxy to herself more than to me, her eyes far away. The painting of you looking all sullen and forlorn in your hand-me-down sitting on the pack house porch steps. I mean, you were always a pretty girl, admitted Roxy offhandedly, making me blush. But you were so sour, she exclaimed. But now I get it. Who could blame you? After everything you've been through, Felix was terrified you would reject him as a mate and say no to the marriage proposal. He was scared he'd wake up one day and you'd just be gone. No explanation, no note, no apology, nothing. Felix told you all of this? I whispered. She nodded. I hope you're not upset. I mean, we've been friends for years and years, even before high school. I'm Beta Keaton's daughter. Didn't you know that? No, I didn't. Beta Keaton seems in his late 30s, I mumbled. He looked too young to have a 21-year-old daughter. She laughed. Oh, you know, werewolves always look young, she said with a wave of her hand as though it were old news. I felt a little bit better about Tanya, Sandra, and Avery being so jealous and angry, but I also felt overwhelmed. The triplets had a whole life that I felt I wasn't privy to. Their time with me was like a private little fantasy world. I sighed. You're sobering up, said Alex softly, walking in with a tray of snacks. Brownies, chips with dip, soft pretzels, and mini croissants, some filled with Nutella and others savory with crab salad. Where'd you get all this? I chuckled. Charlista picked some stuff, Alex said. Charlista? I asked. Our housekeeper, said Moxie, Roxy's younger sister, who walked into the kitchen at that moment, followed by Calix and Felix. Chastity, are you okay? Calix asked, coming up to me and stroking my hair. Baby, where'd you run off to? What happened? I missed you, Felix said, rushing forwards and kissing my forehead over and over again. It took you ages to notice I was missing, I said in a small voice. Felix grinned at me. Fine, let me have it then, said Felix, opening his arms widely. What? I squeaked, surprised at his words. Felix chuckled. Yell at me, he said. It'll make you feel better. No, I said stiffly, shaking my head. He pressed his forehead to mine. Chastity, he grumbled in his deep voice. He pressed his lips to my forehead again. Come on, little party animal. It's time to go home, said Calix, winking. Alex carried me to the car, holding me bridal style and cradling my head to his chest. I sat in the back seat in silence. Alex drove. Felix was in the passenger seat, and Calix was next to me. "So you're not going to talk to us?" asked Calix. Felix and Alex looked back at me. "Don't you have girls to be winking at, Calix?" I said. Calix frowned. "And Felix, don't you have any more parties thrown by your exes to go to, or attended by your exes?" I asked. Felix squirmed a little. "And Alex, don't you have more pack knowledge to share with a crowd of admiring girls while I stumble off by myself at the party you three wanted me to go to?" I said. Alex looked at me through the rearview mirror. "The three of you were so furious when my hair tie smelled like another guy, and yet I'm supposed to be fine and dandy with your huge fan clubs? Where are the boundaries? You disgust me with your ex, Felix. You talked to her about me being your mate and about you proposing," I snapped. Alex was pulling into the driveway of the pack house. Felix was quiet, and so was Calix. "Aren't you even going to say anything?" I asked. "You're just a little hungover and you're emotional. Let's all go to sleep. Everything will be fine," said Alex. I opened the door forcefully and hopped out into the snow. I sank into the crunchy snow. It was knee-deep. I shivered. I had on a thin pair of stockings under my mini black dress. "Chastity!" Alex called, upset that I had not waited to be carried out, but I was already moving as quickly as I could through the mounds of snow and shivering all the way. I climbed the porch steps with some difficulty and went to my room, my downstairs bedroom. Felix followed. "You know you're not allowed in here by yourself since the kidnapper showed up," he said in a no-nonsense tone. "I want to take a bath in my tub, that's all," I said quietly. "There are many bathtubs upstairs, Chastity," said Felix blankly. "I just need a minute. Just 1 minute," I said. My wolf was angry at me. She felt I was acting childishly. Felix seemed exasperated. Calix seemed indifferent to how upset I was about the winking. Alex was treating me like a petulant child. The Luna hated me, and I knew she had something to do with that kidnapper. Felix sighed. "Okay." He left the room. I was not certain what madness gripped me. Perhaps it was the alcohol, my childhood issues, the triplets' exes harassing me being afraid of the Luna who I was made to still live with. I did not know what was the exact cause. It was probably the combination. When I had first come to live with the triplets and their parents when I was only 9, I would go sit on the roof to feel closer to my parents. I felt we were looking at the same moon and thinking of each other. I would go up to the attic and climb out onto the roof to be closer to the moon and thus closer to my parents. I left the bathroom and went up the stairs. There were 2 pack guards right outside my bedroom door, probably put there by Felix. They nodded respectfully to me, and I did the same. I crept up the staircase. I could hear the triplets discussing something. I could even differentiate their voices by the intonation. "She's just stressed. It's all too much for her," said Alex. "What do we do?" asked Calix. "Can't we take her back to the beach? All this stress isn't healthy for her," Felix suggested. "We can't be like runaway alphas always on vacation. We have so many pack matters to—" Alex's voice faded as I went up to the attic. It was dusty there. I sneezed. It was spooky with all its ornaments and statues covered in white sheets. I found a light. It flickered on. It was dim but allowed me to see the familiar circular window. I pushed it open. There was a very small balcony there that was more for decor than functionality. I climbed onto it. It was creakier than I remembered. The moon was full. She was so beautiful. My wolf and I felt relieved instantly. I gazed at the beautiful moon surrounded by her silvery stars. I sighed. I got lost in it. The moon and her ethereal beauty. I lost track of time. I heard a sudden series of thuds like heavy footsteps. Felix coming to freak out about me being missing for more than 5 minutes. I smiled. It was cold, so I wouldn't mind Felix warming me up. 5 minutes and I already missed the warmth and smells of the triplets. The heavy thuds got a little louder. I stiffened. The smell was not like Felix's smell. He smelled of sea salt and coconuts, like an island. This smell was sharp, medicinal almost. A slimy, colorless liquid dropped onto my shoulder. I recoiled. I turned around slowly, and there it was. A huge wolf crouched on the roof, saliva slipping down its jaw as its heavy paws thudded on the snow-topped roof. I could see my breath in the cold air. My view grew hazy. I was in no position to shift, and this wolf was at least twice my wolf's size. My wolf whimpered. She wanted me to scream for the triplets, but I knew if I screamed, the very agitated wolf might go for the jugular and rip my throat out. Before I had to make any difficult decision, human arms grabbed me and pressed a cloth to my mouth. Chloroform. Darkness engulfed me as the angry wolf faded from view.
Dear user, now you are reaching VIP chapter for next one. Please open the app to unlock single or multiple VIP chapter.